Olivia is a dancer who once traveled with a group of entertainers. One day, a corrupt noble tried to kidnap her, but she was rescued by Basilio, Regna Ferox's West Kahn. Grateful for his heroics, she settled in Regna Ferox, where she accompanied Basilio and his right-hand man, Lon'qu. During Chrom's escape from Plegia, after failing to rescue Emmeryn, Olivia was responsible for securing carriages so that they could escape, but she was caught by Mustafa. Thanks to his mercy though, she was allowed to go. Olivia joins Chrom's party after they defeat Mustafa and escape Plegia. Did you ever wonder why Olivia wears what she wears? Why she wears borderline lingerie despite being the most shy girl in the army? Why she would wear a top that exposes her chest, but she also covers her chest with her arm in her in-game portrait? What purpose does this discrepancy serve? What's the point? This video goes at length to really get to the bottom of this question, and as I'm about to argue, it's meant to outline the two personalities that Olivia exhibits. Maribel puts it best. On the battlefield, Olivia is daring, brave, and will help her allies without a second thought. Her outfit is unique, creative, and accentuates her womanly figure. So as a passionate performing artist and entertainer, this outfit makes sense. And we see the practicality of her outfit when she's dancing for her friends on and off the battlefield. But out of battle, she reduces herself to a wet noodle, shy and nervous around others and prone to embarrassing herself. She becomes the mouse. But there is another personality trait about her that may surprise you. Discussing this dichotomy and exploring how deep it goes through her supports will be the focus of this video. I'll be talking about the mouse and what exactly that means. Not only talking about her shyness and awkwardness towards others, but arguing the validity of her more insidious character flaw, her vanity. A character trait which arises often, but especially when she's feeling unconfident and self-seeking. I'll then take a more positive turn, discussing Olivia the Bold in more detail, highlighting instances where we see Olivia comfortable with others to explore when Olivia is truly at her best, inspiring people, being selfless, and demonstrating confidence in what she's doing. It's very important to understand that Olivia isn't just a dancer. She's a performer. She's an artist. Someone who evokes emotions not just through dance, but by song, or by storytelling. It's as she says with Rickon, "It's the performer's blood in me, I suppose. I simply love having a rapt audience. There's nothing better than putting a smile on someone's face." Whatever the art form, whether it's singing with Donna, or storytelling with Rickon, or dancing with Libra, Olivia knows how to draw the attention of others and impact them in a profound way. And it's not just on stage either, but on the battlefield too. In Maribel's C support, she tells her, "When you dance, you're so daring. You stand tall and proud, completely unafraid to meet the watcher's eye. You exhibit great strength and dignity." If she's completely unafraid to be watched and exhibits pride and dignity, then I would argue that this revealing attire fits that character description. But back at camp? Well, Maribel continues, "And when you stop, you become this jabbering, bashful mess of insecurities. I want to see more of Olivia the Bold and less of Olivia the Mouse." With the power of performance, Olivia is a lion. Without it, she's the opposite. She's shy and nervous, and often embarrasses herself in front of her peers for the most mundane reasons, like when she tries practicing speaking like a noble and ends up making herself look silly in front of Robin, or getting caught by Vake, sorrowfully grieving over the seasons changing and then excessively apologizing for angering him. And I mean, her portrait blatantly depicts the mouse in all her glory, blushing in embarrassment and covering her chest. Sneakier, however, is how often a certain character flaw of hers, one that gets often overlooked, I might add, will arise whenever she is in this state of mind: her vanity. While it seems hard to believe that Olivia is vain, given that she seems to exhibit the opposite of pride or conceit, Olivia is self-centered, usually focusing on her own flaws and bringing them up to the forefront of the conversation, sometimes completely out of the blue, resulting in many of her support partners giving her attention and ultimately making the support revolve mostly around what she's hung up on. With Frederick and Pan, she's concerned about what they think of her. With Gaius, Virion, Vake, among others, she brings up her uselessness, which ends up being the main focus in whatever conversation she mentions it in. Olivia may not feel as capable as, say, Robin or other shepherds, and it's understandable that she may not feel as helpful in comparison, but she's not purely innocent. As we will see with Pan, she disingenuously uses her feelings of inadequacy as a crutch to excuse herself from being judged by others. In their C support, Olivia asks Pan what she thinks of her. She bluntly responds with not thinking of her at all, Olivia supposes it's a silly question to ask, but follows up by saying that she feels so useless all the time. Pan, confused at what she's saying, nonetheless tries to answer her question. If you are here, then clearly you are needed. If you were useless, Chrom would have left you on the side of the road somewhere. Are you perhaps laying the groundwork for future failure? What Pan is asking here is that if Olivia is purposely creating a narrative of being useless and incapable of doing most things well, so if she does fail at something, she can be excused because people's expectations of her were already low. While there is a certain truth to Olivia claiming she may not have the combat prowess like Chrom or Pan, it's silly to think that her dancing isn't useful in the group. It's as Pan says, if you are here, then clearly you are needed. Olivia also tries to downplay her competency at dancing. She calls herself so clumsy of a dancer in front of Chrom, claims to be rusty on a new dance she recently choreographed in front of Robin, and claims not to be much of a dancer to Donald, but at the same time, acts like she has a laundry list of dances that she's perfected when she masters a duet with Virion. It's obnoxious how often she will try to downplay her talent, and frustrating that her partners will respond predictably by encouraging her that she's better than what she thinks she is. So it's satisfying when a few of her partners call her out on this behavior. Maribel and Pan calling out Olivia on her antics proves that Olivia's self-deprecating behavior is partially motivated by vanity and ostentatiousness. In her and Maribel's C-support, she outright says it. After Olivia gets caught serenading herself after practicing a dance routine, Maribel remarks that she dances well, and she thanks her, but of course humbly mentions that she's still working on the rough bits. Then, frustrated by her inability to take a compliment, Maribel tells her to cut out the false modesty and to gain some confidence instead. She begins to describe her observations of her on and off the battlefield, referring to her as Olivia the Bold and Olivia the Mouse respectively. She then comes up with the idea to conduct special training for her, so she would stop being such a jabbering, bashful mess of insecurities. If Olivia is alone, she'll recognize her own talent and will even praise herself. But when people are watching, she rejects compliments, but fishes for them at the same time. When Maribel tells her to cut out the false modesty and gain some confidence instead, what she's saying is that Olivia needs to have that self-confidence to take judgment from onlookers, instead of highlighting her own flaws so she doesn't need to hear it from them. This behavior isn't surprising when you consider what Olivia does for a living. She's a performer, and when she's all glammed up and well rehearsed, she's going to get serenaded with praise by a lot of people. But it's those instances outside of that setting where that solace in the applause of the audience is gone, where she becomes vain and self-seeking. She needs to warn her support partners that she's clumsy, that she has 2 left feet, or that she's rusty before she dances for them because she's that insecure, or tell them her flaws afterwards since maybe she wasn't performing at her best just then. In their B support, they go downtown and Maribel orders her to flirt with noblemen. This is obviously uncomfortable for Olivia, but that's the intent. Olivia is being forced to confront her social insecurities by gaining the confidence to speak to high-class individuals so that she can become the bold outside of the battlefield. It's true that Olivia has confidence issues, but instead of facing her fear of shyness, she sets herself up to be praised instead of finding the bravery to overcome her confidence issues. Perhaps because she's too scared to do it on her own, or that she's just doing it because it's the easier path. It may as well be both. It's the only way she feels comfortable of feeling confident. Maribel easily sees through Olivia's facade, and tries to fix her confidence issues through a very hands-on approach. Pan also sees through it, but she approaches Olivia's shenanigans in a more passive way. In their B support, Pan tells her that her dancing was helpful in the last battle, and hopes that she will continue being of assistance. Olivia responds with, "I'll try, but I'm just so and cuts herself off before she calls herself useless again. Olivia admits that she does make excuses for herself in case she messes up. Then she elaborates on the why. "See, the thing is, you were right. I do try to make excuses for myself. I wish I knew how to be strong and confident like you." In their A support, Pan tells Olivia that she needs to discover her own limits and gain the confidence by pushing herself and putting herself out there. In other words, to be bold and brave enough to do things that intimidate her, exactly like how she was forced to do with Maribel. These two partners serve as much needed foils for Olivia. Aside from these two, no other support partner challenges her in any significant way. I find Maribel's support even more important to Olivia because it's canon, as her intervention is mentioned by Inigo. It's telling of where Olivia starts and where she's destined to end, but that discussion is for later in the video. The Olivia we know, whose concern for how she's perceived by others rises up one more time, this time with Frederick. She approaches him, asking if, as a grown adult man, if he's attracted to her. Upon saying that he isn't, she sadly mentions that she needs to be fully captivating to everyone if she wants them to believe her performance. While this instance is Olivia expressing concern of her impression on people for quote-unquote professional reasons, their B support onwards becomes much more personal. In B, he ends up asking literally every man he can find what they think of her. But the sheer amount of men asked makes Olivia paranoid that those men will assume that she wanted Frederick to ask them on her behalf. Suddenly, the legitimate professional concern that she had quickly fumbles into a personal one, and that unsurprisingly has more weight to it. Instead of being satisfied that basically 99% of men think she's a catch, she focuses on the negative, that these men will judge her as desperate for attention. This worry is irrational, so arbitrary of a worry that it's almost unbelievable. Like, who gives a crap, right? In A, any professional concern that may have been left from B gets forgotten. Frederick admits that he's starting to warm up to her as well. Then she asks him if she can know exactly how he feels about her. Again, for professional reasons. This is an opportunity for Olivia to be once again given attention and praise. There is no doubt that she enjoys when the spotlight is on her. But consider how freaked out and paranoid she was at the thought of random strangers judging her about what Frederick did. It's quite a self-centered thought, and it's clear that she is the only one who thinks it's worth anything. It's covert narcissism. Olivia becomes so focused on herself and not Frederick that she worries about how flawed she is to random older men, without even considering how unfair it is to point the blame on this entire problem on him. The reality is that the only person who thinks about Olivia this much is Olivia herself. I find this to be one of Olivia's worst moments, but it's fitting that Frederick is used to highlight how self-centered she is. Frederick's default characteristic is to be selfless. Olivia, or rather, Olivia the mouse, meanwhile, has the opposite character trait. I suppose this argument seems tricky, as she does have both self-esteem issues and vanity at the same time, and seeing what low self-esteem is and what is vain is hard to discern. But I find Olivia's case is one and the same. Her dreams drive her to seek out something very good, to entertain people. But in seeking out what others like, she worries too much about her own capabilities. She becomes focused on herself, vanity, which makes her shy, have low self-confidence, and is self-seeking. Seeking praise seems to give her confidence, but in doing so only bandages the problem rather than address it. This is why Pan and Maribel's supports are so satisfying. They encourage her to be irrational and to focus on lofty goals to become less self-conscious and more confident. It's normal. It's rational to shy away from judgment and jeers from others to feel safe, but it's as Pan says, by being irrational, by stepping away from that comfort and making that jump, that's how Olivia can achieve her wish of being confident and strong. Olivia's dream is to entertain and inspire. This is part of the reason why she does so well on the battlefield. Not only does the intensity of battle cause her to forget about her shyness, but it's also the fact that she excels in inspiring others to fight on. She needs to have, and ultimately acquires that backbone to be there for her comrades in battle, and naturally becomes Olivia the Bold. That being said, the word bold in of itself isn't an apt description of how Olivia behaves when she's not acting reserved, passive, shy, or generally insecure. Olivia the Bold doesn't only mean Olivia when she has grit, resolve, or backbone. Olivia becomes the bold when she's facilitating her interactions, displaying confidence and pride in herself and in her work. Olivia's true strength, even in an intense battle, is the performing arts. When she's engaging in such activities to her partners, that's when the bold comes out. We get a first small dose of the bold in her B support with Rickon, where she explains why she's lugging around a giant bag of gold. She admits to wanting to build a giant theater with fly lofts and trapdoors and a huge proscenium arch, a place where people of all walks of life can experience the wonder of dance. Olivia doesn't just want the world to experience the world of dance, she wants to be the medium of which they see it. Olivia is a prodigy of dance. She's capable of learning and creating new and difficult dance routines by merely watching them once and practicing them for a short time. In Virion's C support, he helps her learn a duet by instructing her while dancing the gentleman's part, and quickly thereafter, she perfects that dance. Later, she perfects yet another duet routine, but this time with Virion instructing her from across the room, because at this point, she's so into him that she swoons whenever he isn't looking. Olivia is able to perfect 2 duets in little time, and in the latter routine, she makes it harder for herself by making Virion instruct her from far away. With Libra, she's able to look at his dance in devotion to the gods just once before she masters the steps, and then upon a short time under Libra's guidance, she learns the subtext behind each move and step. By their A support, she completely masters the dance to the point where Libra weeps from emotion, apparently for the first time in years. The last instance of Olivia learning dance is with Donna. Their support revolves around a ballad about a swan princess on a journey to find her lover, the Black Swan Prince. Olivia catches Donna singing it, and then they begin to sing together. Donna comments on how the song is sad because it ends with the swan princess setting out on a journey to find the prince, but the evil swans go to her domain and destroy it. Olivia tells him that that is just the middle act of the ballad, and explains the final act consists of the Black Swan answering the call from the moon to fight the evil swans away. The ballad ends with the 2 swans embracing while the princess looks up at the moon, standing atop her ruined kingdom. In B, Donald confronts Olivia and tells her that he thinks the ballad is still a sad one because even though the 2 swans reunited, her home is still in ruins. He wonders how she can be truly happy if her home is destroyed. The quandary immediately challenges Olivia's perspective on the ballad, specifically the choreography of the final act. In the choreography, the princess smiles at the moon when they embrace, but the movements are slow and sad, as if they were full of loss. I never understood how she could be so sorrowful in the midst of an embrace, but now I think I get it. Donna replies, she's happy for herself, but still thinking about home being all busted up. Only because of Donald's interpretation, she begins to see the final act in a completely different light, and practices the dance with a new direction. As a result, by their A support, and the beginning of their S support, Donald is so overcome with emotions that he begins to weep. Not only that, but she begins to as well during her own dance. Olivia can emulate a dance perfectly by seeing it just once or twice, which is a testament to her capability as a dancer. But as seen with Libra and Donald, she tends not to understand the emotional subtext of the dance or the specific moves therein. She struggles to understand Libra's devotional dance because she doesn't understand what she's really doing, and she's incapable of understanding why the final act of the Swan Ballad is so sad because she assumed it was a love story with a happy ending. This discrepancy between her ability to perform the movement, but inability to get the why behind them, puts her passion and raw talent on display, but her limitations as well. Those limitations being her youthfulness, causing her not to grasp the emotional breadth of these routines. The supports highlighted just now describe an Olivia who is more confident, capable, and pleasant to be around. But not only are her emotional limitations present, she isn't facilitating these conversations. So far, she's been in the passenger seat. Robin takes initiative and makes her dream a reality. Virion and Libra teach her those dances. And Donald's perceptiveness drives Olivia to interpret the swan dance in the right way. With that said, there are 3 supports where we see Olivia not only overcoming those limitations, but truly facilitating an entire chain of supports. 3 legitimate examples of what Maribel describes as the bold. It's with her son Inigo, her old friend Lon'qu, and with my homeboy Rickon. Her and Rickon's C support begins with him absorbed in a book he's reading. Olivia tries to get his attention and then suddenly yells at him to shift his focus. Rickon starts to explain that the book he's reading is a collection of ancient myths and legends, and when he mentions that he's reading about a prince falling in love with a forest maiden, an homage to FE4, she quickly pops a squat next to him and tells him to turn the page. Olivia is so quick to sit next to Rickon that he responds with, "Whoa, space bubble violation, I thought you were the shy type." If that's not an indicator of the difference between the mouse and the bold, I don't know what is. Olivia is already comfortable around Rickon, maybe because he's not very imposing, or perhaps simply because they have a mutual interest in stories. But the look in her eyes that he observes is telling of something else that might be making Olivia act a particular way. Their B support starts with Rickon quivering in fear over a horror story about Shanty Pete. Meanwhile, Olivia is yawning, unimpressed. She explains that she heard much scarier stories in the past from her time as a traveling performing artist. Rickon gets excited and asks if she can tell him one of those ones, and after some uncertainty, she supposes she could tell him the scariest one she knows. Rickon yet again observes that she's getting that look in her eyes. The A support takes place after the story is told, and Rickon was taken for a ride. He tells her that her enthusiasm was infectious, and that she was really enjoying herself. Olivia responds that she loves having rapt audiences and making people happy. She offers to continue the story, but warns him that if he ever gets too scared to stop her right away, as she, quote unquote, can offer no reassurances about what might happen in the night. She laughs maniacally, then out of nowhere, jump scares him. After he recovers from his shock, he laughs and calls her a really great entertainer. Off-screen, Olivia has been facilitating the progression of this support, and she's done such a fine job because she's an entertainer that she's also manipulating Rickon's emotions. Rickon goes from intrigued to excited to fearful and then to happy. Unlike her dances with Libra and Donna, there isn't a complicated emotional barrier that she has yet to master. She knows exactly how to deliver this story and is consequently unrestrained with Rickon. Laughing maniacally, warning him about what happens in the night, and scaring him are examples of that boldness. All displays of confidence, passion, and pride to a higher degree than with anyone else. It's rare, but great to see Olivia turn from this passive, shy girl into someone who's enthusiastic and active. Her support with Lon'qu, just like with Rickon, showcases a much more fun, endearing, and well, better side of her. Their support begins with him trying to master one of Basilio's moves, slicing a water jug so clean that it does not shatter and no drop of water is spilled. Olivia sees this and mentions that when Basilio does it, he barely swings the blade. He asks that she observes his attempts at it, but urging her not to stand so closely as he's afraid of women. Their B support begins with Lon'qu again trying to slice the jar, but still to no avail. Olivia suggests that he take a break and eat dinner, but he refuses, remaining focused at the task at hand. Because of Lon'qu's dedication, Olivia remarks that Basilio once told her that he never knew anyone with more self-discipline than Lon'qu. The compliment pleasantly surprises him, and she further mentions that Basilio would always talk about him and how he always thought of him as his true rival. He starts to blush and quickly tries to hide it by excusing himself to go eat. Lon'qu blushing at Basilio's words indicates that he isn't just some stern, edgy dude with a sword. It's as Olivia said, it's a facade. Well, kind of a facade. For context, his trauma and frequent nightmares come from him failing to protect his late childhood girlfriend, Carrie, and the presence of women overcomes him with guilt. He keeps to himself, fearing that if his peers knew that he had childish nightmares about the experience, they would think of him as weak. He dedicates so much to the blade so he can never let anyone close enough to get hurt by him again. This mentality and tough training regimen naturally makes him stressed out and tensed up, the latter of which Olivia mentions in their A support. In there, she grabs his hand, shocking him, but telling him that he must let the tension flow through his body, that no one is as resolute in purpose as he is, and that he needs to believe in himself. Olivia takes charge of his problem when she realizes that she can help him. She comes up with an idea, then immediately grabs his hand and presumably guides it for him. Of course, she ends up getting embarrassed by such a forward action, but nonetheless, Olivia wants to help him, and is using her expertise in body movement, coordination, and flow to do so. Unknowingly, however, she helps him in a more important way. Through touch, she encourages him to leave his comfort zone away from women and also to unburden the pressure he self-imposes, all while being emotionally supported by a friend. And in their S support, that tension-ridding action on Olivia's part profoundly impacts him. Thanks to her, he can finally be at ease. He can let his guard down. Is Olivia being courageous and brave like she is on the battlefield with Lon'qu here? No, but to observe Olivia the Bold in the lens of how Maribel would gauge it would be reductive. Olivia is so much more active here than in her other supports. There are even instances where she flusters herself in front of Lon'qu because she can't believe she would act this forward in the first place. But grabbing his wrist and then grabbing his hand in joy are impulsive acts. She just does them, just like how she just does dance for her allies. Despite her embarrassment, she is nonetheless a catalyst, and therefore she is bold. Rickon's support with Olivia shows us an Olivia truly at her best as an entertainer, giving us a dimension of her that is far from the passive, insecure young lady we so often see. Lon'qu allows her to be more spontaneous with her actions, even to the point where she doesn't realize how forward they are until well after the fact. It shows us that Olivia is kind and encouraging, not just wanting to help others achieve their goals, but taking initiative in their journey to do so. And finally, there is Inigo, where we see an Olivia whose emotional maturity has developed both in her timeline and in her son's. Their C support picks up where their recruit conversation left off, her finding out that Inigo is a dancer too. This C support has her catching her son sneaking off in the middle of the night to try to find a private place to dance. So she tries to talk to Inigo into letting her watch him dance, but her intervention is fruitless, and her son seems to get more embarrassed at the thought of being watched by someone watching him trying to work on incomplete dances and unmastered moves. In their B support, after asking about the fairness of knowing random people raving about his dancing but not letting his own mother watch him even once, Inigo sticks to his no one look policy, justifying it by trying to find a mutual understanding of shyness. Olivia responds by questioning how, if Inigo is so shy, he can spend each day hitting on every girl he can find. He says that he used to be crippling shy in public, but Olivia told him that the fastest way to overcome that shyness and be brave was to talk to women on the street. This is a reference to Olivia's A support with Maribel, in which she forces Olivia to walk up to noblemen and hit on them in an effort to force Olivia to overcome her own shyness. So, first of all, Olivia and Maribel's support is canon. Second, that the future Olivia is literally Olivia the Bold and has used Maribel's own tactic to help Inigo overcome his shyness. The future Olivia has substantially influenced how Inigo lives his life. He doesn't just share Olivia's passion for dance, he shares her passion to help others. And whether it's through dancing, making others laugh, or cracking a smile, Inigo lives his life to invoke happiness in others, just like his mom does now and will continue to do in the future. This is indicated in what and in how Inigo practices. In A, she finally catches him while he's trying to practice. And after Olivia briefly coaches him on his technique, she realizes that the routine he was practicing was her favorite dance, but the latter half of it was different. Inigo explains the following: that she died before he could learn the second part, that he would practice beside her grave, that he would imagine her mentoring him as he practiced, that he just wanted her to coach him out loud. But now that she's finally here with him, his dream, no, their desire to dance with one another is finally fulfilled. Inigo's personality, passions, and desires are a direct consequence of Olivia's actions in his post-apocalyptic world. Our Olivia may not be as emotionally mature as how Inigo describes her to be, but the Olivia he knows, she's a beautiful, graceful, and loving mother, wanting the absolute best for her son, and going above and beyond to help him overcome his problems. To go back to the beginning, to the original question of why this discrepancy exists, it's telling of the bigger issue Olivia has. She has two personalities which arise in different circumstances. The mouse, which will invoke feelings of shyness, insecurity, and vanity. And then the bold, which will invoke feelings of bravery, assertiveness, and charm. Olivia may not always be the girl we see fighting on the battlefield, but if there's one thing you should take away from a relationship with her son, is that one day, she will be.